Leonard, Sharon, you can see my screen, correct?
Yes.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, where'd Leonard go? Okay, we are trying to get started as close to 1 decibel. I'm just letting folks get into the meeting. Okay. Keep meeting this person. Excellent. Sharon Leonard must have had a technical problem because he was on and then he disappeared.
I believe you are correct, since he's now disappeared a second time.
Yeah. I'm constantly muting all. Okay. Well, perhaps we should start, and I can always take on Leonard's slides if he can't join us in interest of time. Go ahead,
I agree.
So I'm muting everyone throughout the meeting. So is my other folks on the call, but Sharon, take it away, please.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us. This is our virtual meeting to go over our request for interest for the Diamond District. We're going to do a short visual presentation, so I apologize for those of you who are calling in, but primarily this is for you to ask us questions, and so we will try to be as brief as we can with just giving a quick overview of the RIF and what we are looking for. Next slide. So let me do some brief introductions. My name is Sharon Ebert. I am the Deputy Chief Administrative Officer, and I oversee the portfolio of planning and economic and development for the city of Richmond. With us today, we hope, is Leonard Sledge, who's the Director of Economic Development. and also Maritza Mercado Pichin, who is our Deputy Director and who is in charge of our Office of Equitable Development, which is within the Department of Planning and Development Review. And we also have with us Ed McLaughlin, who is the Vice President and Director of Athletics for the Virginia Commonwealth University, VCU. And all of us will be participating in answering your questions as well as giving you some information. And so with that, I'd like to turn it back over to you. And I still do not see Leonard with us. So Maritza?
Thank you. Sam or Emily, could you please mute whoever's making that sound? Mute all. Okay, thank you. So I am Maritza Pichin. Thank you, Sharon, for welcoming everyone. I wanted to go over the timeline real quick of where we are. The timeline actually started before December 2021. The city has been preparing this site for redevelopment for over 10 years. We cleared property and we remediated part of the property. We cleared buildings rather, and we remediated part of the property. In 2020, we adopted the Richmond 300 Master Plan, which included a small area plan for this area. That is included in the appendix to the RFI. And then last year, we rezoned this property and property surrounding it to get ready for the redevelopment effort. In October of this year, we started marketing the opportunity. And then in December 28th, we released the request for interest. We're having the virtual meeting. There's other important dates there that I'll review at the end. The submissions are due February 15th by 3 p.m. To my office, which is included in the RFI. It cannot be postmarked by February 15th, but rather received at that time and date. We will review the RFI submissions. A panel, including city staff, elected officials, and VCU representative will review the RFIs and shortlist respondents and issue a request for offers to those respondents. So you can see the general dates there shown in this slide. An overview of the opportunity. The Diamond District is about 67 acres of property located at the intersections at the overlap of I-95 and I-64. For people who are not from Virginia, 64 connects Virginia from the coast at the Tidewater area where the Navy base is, all the way west to West Virginia and keeps going. It's the primary east-west highway in Virginia. And it overlaps with 95 for 6 miles through Richmond's downtown. And this site is located right at one of the off-ramps, interchanges of that overlap. The property, most of the property is owned by the city of Richmond. About 6 acres are owned by VCU, Virginia Commonwealth University, which is a state university. That's why they are part of the evaluation panel. It's bounded by Arthur Ashe Boulevard to the west, Hermitage to the east, and VCU Athletic Village is proposed, about 40 acres of property to the east of the site along Hermitage. Looking at the surrounding area for folks who are not familiar with Richmond, Virginia, as well as some are, on the left of this slide, you'll see several projects that have been completed or in the pipeline. Right near the Diamond District, as we're calling it. And there continue to be more and more projects around this area. On the right, you can see some of the kind of quality of life, living amenities around the area. South of the Diamond District is Scott's Addition, our industrial mixed-use neighborhood. The Fan and the Museum District are historic neighborhoods with kind of row home looking like streets lined with trees. And then north of the site are predominantly a single family neighborhood with some duplexes and apartment buildings mixed in as well, slightly lower density than south. And you can kind of get a glimpse of what exists around here. There's a lot of breweries in Scott's Addition, cideries. It's our area that has seen a dramatic change over the last 20 years with lots of apartments, office, conversion of industrial spaces, and kind of new industrial uses like breweries and meaderies and wineries. and like barcades and things like that. The RFI lists a lot of goals and identifies that an ideal project would achieve these goals. I'm not going to read them all for you because the RFI lists it in detail, and I want to give opportunity for people to ask questions in this environment. But the goals are put into 3 major buckets: development goals, community goals, and fiscal goals. And we will be evaluating, the evaluation panel will be using the 4 buckets of criteria shown here to evaluate the proposals, and all of those kind of deep bullet points of what we mean by development team, urban mixed use, equitable development benefits, and project understanding are outlined in the RFP on pages 19 and 20. So upcoming key dates, tomorrow is the deadline to register for the tour. We are looking closely at Omicron and all of how you have to continuously reevaluate and change things when you're planning things during a pandemic. We are planning on having an in-person site tour. We had wanted to do a bus tour, but now we are reluctant to have everyone on a bus together. So instead it will be we'll meet at the site and kind of talk people through what they're seeing, and then offer people a printed self-guided tour that they can take of the surrounding area. At the site tour, we will offer opportunity for people to ask questions. We will record the questions, and we will post all of the questions that we receive and the answers on January 26th. If you have follow-up questions after this or after that site tour, please get those to me by Friday, January 21st at midnight. And again, the submissions are due on February 15th, and my contact information is on the rvadiamond.com website, but it's also shown here, maritza.peachin@rva.gov. And so, Sharon, did we get Leonard to join?
I do not see him in my participation list.
Okay. Is there anything else that you wanted to add that I might have missed? Because I kind of was trying to make sure we have time for questions, but don't want to rush too much.
No, the only thing I would say is I would like to ask Ed McLaughlin if he wants to make any just general remarks before we open it up to everybody that's joined us. Ed, do you have anything that you'd like to say?
No, I mean, I think everything was covered pretty well. Obviously we are endeavoring to build a whole bunch of athletic facilities, an indoor-outdoor tennis center, multi-purpose indoor facility, practice fields, new stadium on our land across Hermitage Road. So obviously working with the folks who are developers is going to be very important from our perspective for shared infrastructure and making sure that the 2 pieces fit together very well.
Great, thank you. So Maritza, why don't we open it up for any questions and however you're going to handle that.
So we would like you to raise your hand, and we'll also pause for people who might want to ask questions on the phone. They can unmute. You press *6 to unmute on your phone. No questions. Well, as people might think of questions, I see a couple coming up. One thing, since I started talking about it, that I want to make sure everyone sees is that the plan, the RFI includes several appendices. The document itself is only 24 pages, but the appendices provide include the ballpark analysis, a market analysis, the small area plan, details about the site, and then kind of community benefit goals. All right, Brett Sherman, go ahead and unmute yourself. And by the way, we have Emily from my team is writing down the questions. So don't go too fast so she can get it down. Go ahead.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Maritza. I noticed in the conceptual design included in the RFP, there's a signature bridge over the CSX right away. I'm just curious what, if any, dialogue has happened with CSX, or what respondent teams should assume from a control perspective on accessing and performing a flyover CSX right away.
Conversations with CSX have not happened yet about a flyover. We have the right-of-way that has been talked about as a connector. Part of that right-of-way is on Movie Land property, and it's part of their property. It's not CSX land, and conversations have been had with Movie Land on having a greenway there, and that part of that project has already been partially funded on the greenway part through VDOT Smart Scale funding.
Thank you.
Daniel Hammerman.
Hi, thanks. Two questions, if I can squeeze them in. One is quick and technical, which is regarding like the site plan. Are there any CAD backgrounds or drawings that we could use as a base to work off of that will be distributed at some point? And then a second, more conceptual question, if you could speak for a minute about community engagement. Just in general, I saw the community benefits expectations in the back. I know about all the efforts with Richmond 300 in general, but specifically about this site, is there any kind of documentation of process that's happened and engagement that's informed this RFI and in general going forward? Is it hoped that the development team is going to take the lead with community engagement, or is the city expecting to continue leading and facilitating that process?
On the first with CAD, I will have to get back to you on whether or not we have CAD. We do have GIS shapefiles, and if you go to the city's GIS database, you can download like a bunch of different layers from the GIS database. So I'll have to get back on that one, and so I'll write that down and see if one of our architects has anything like that. On community engagement, we hosted several meetings and had a few surveys out as we developed the Richmond 300 plan, as you mentioned. At that time, we had posted kind of an Excel of all of the survey results. I don't think those are still on our website, but we can certainly provide all of that as a follow-up with all of the to everyone. It's totally public information. In terms of going forward community engagement, at this point, like the city is leading a lot of the community engagement as we do the evaluation process. However, I would look for, I could imagine that we'd want to partner with the development team that is selected on community engagement moving forward. Anything to add on that, Sharon or Leonard, on community engagement? And help.
Sure. I would just say that as we get through the first step, which is evaluating the RFI proposals, there probably will be some community engagement once we sort of shortlist the set of proposals coming in, and then we'll start in detail laying out sort of how we're going to really engage the community. I don't think we've fully developed our plan at this point. It does depend a little bit on how many proposals we receive. And
one thing to add, because it just came to my mind, we are meeting with the local district. So this site is within the 2nd district, which is city. Richmond City has 9 council districts. It's fully within the 2nd district, but it's right next to the 3rd district. And we have a joint meeting with them and their constituents next week. So we're already starting community engagement, and we have materials posted. We're starting to post things on our Twitter and social media accounts about the process generally. It'll get more specific as we move on, as Sharon said. And I wanted to introduce Leonard Sledge, who clearly had technical problems. Our Director of Economic Development will give you all of the hard questions.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for your time today.
Paul. Paul, do you want to go ahead and unmute and ask your question? I see that you unmuted, but I cannot hear you. And also email me your question, and everyone should have my email because I got an email from me right now, and I can read it aloud. Evan Kaufman.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Ah, yes, Paul, we can hear you. Paul, go ahead. Evan will take you right after. All right, Paul, we heard you and then you went away.
Okay, I think we got it figured out now. How about this?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, spectacular. Marisa, could you talk to the financial information that the city is looking for at this stage in the process? What level of detail are you thinking about?
In terms of, so in the RFI, we talk about utilizing financing approaches that minimize public investment. Are you talking about the financing approach or the revenue that the project would generate?
Really, the financing primarily, but the revenue component would be interesting as well to hear about if you're in a position to address that.
Yeah, so in terms of in the evaluation criteria under project understanding and financing approach, we actually don't have you projecting like revenue, even though that is a goal, because that'll kind of come in later with the RFO stage. But we do want to know from you kind of your approach to how you would do finance the project and explain the potential public and private sources that you would be utilizing to finance the project. If you are proposing a public vehicle, we want to see your kind of experience utilizing that kind of financing.
Okay, great. Thank
Leonard,
you.
you have to add. You're welcome. Leonard, what do you have to add to that?
Nothing.
Okay, good, great.
I would just add one other thing. You know, obviously we're evaluating you on your past experiences. So any examples that you can provide us of past mixed use developments where you've used similar financial techniques, methods, would be really very helpful for us to understand how you're approaching the redevelopment of this site.
Thank you. Evan.
Yeah, I had a question. I apologize if it was in the RFI and I missed it, but it's about the ballpark. I know it states that you're looking to have the current ballpark demolished and a new ballpark built. And I was just wondering about the ownership structure. Will the same owner of the ballpark be the owner of the new one and be involved with the development of the new ballpark, or are you looking for new owners of the ballpark as well? Yeah.
The current ballpark structure is owned by the city of Richmond.
Okay.
The future ownership structure we can discuss with respondents.
Yeah, I think we're open. I think we were clear in the RFI. We're just looking for solutions that ideally take the city's financial responsibility to zero, or absolutely as close to zero as possible. From the standpoint of ownership, I think we're open. I think what's key in that openness is just, again, the ability to have the appropriate leases in place with two of the primary users, and that being Richmond Flying Squirrels and the VCU Rams.
Okay, so the current, I guess, operator of the Flying Squirrels, is that like a contract between the city and the operator? And would the operator I guess, possibly change depending on the new structure?
Yes, there's currently an agreement in place between the city and the Squirrels for use of the diamond.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Going back to a question from Daniel about community engagement, I just wanted to kind of reiterate that we have met with with all of the community groups around here. And just for a little bit of context, a while ago, there was a proposal to put the ballpark on part of the VCU athletic campus. And through the small area planning process, and talking to community members who live near this area, we retained the ballpark on the city property. So that shows like one way that things kind of were shaped by community members directly through the engagement we've had so far.
And I think, Maritza, if I could just add to that, I know we have a conceptual illustration within the RFI, and that was based on conversations with the community as well as working with our consultants to sort of come up with a concept plan. It includes the large crescent-shaped park, but we're open to where on our property the new baseball diamond could be built. And we know that it's a timing issue. So I just want to let people know that while we have an illustrative plan of how it could happen, doesn't need to go in the location there where it's shown on the plan. And we actually think there's other more opportunities to it be located in other areas of the plan. So I just want to let everybody know that we're not fixated on that particular conceptual plan.
And similar to that comment is the park. Like the park doesn't necessarily have to go in that shape or in that same, but the idea that there would be public space and green space within the site is something we want to see. Okay, Zach, go ahead and unmute and ask your question.
Hey, thanks. Looking ahead, can you speak to the administrative approval process?
Yes, certainly. That is a very good thing to look ahead to. In order to sell city-owned property, we need 7 of 9 council members vote, so it's a council vote. And in order to use public financing vehicles, we need 5 of 9 council members votes.
But Maritza, one clarification, I didn't realize I cut my camera off. One clarification, that 7 council votes either for any sort of transfer, whether it be sale, whether it be lease, or transfer to any other public, any city entity, it requires the supermajority of council.
Thank you. I saw a hand go up and then it went down, so I just want to, it was really fast. Any other questions? If you're on the phone, unmute and go ahead and ask your question. Oh, John, go ahead.
Good afternoon. Could you guys speak further to the Arthur Ashe relocation effort and the sports backers relocation? To us, at least, it seems a little vague. You know, what is the expectation in terms of assisting? Maybe if you could talk to that a little more.
So the idea is that those functions would be incorporated within the VCU athletic campus, and so or offsite in terms of the Arthur Ashe Athletic Center. Some of the functions might go and some of them might go outside of this area. So it would be working with us to like kind of sequence that as we redevelop the project. So as you look at the aerial, you can see the area that's already grass and kind of is more primed for redevelopment. So other pieces might come down later, but we still see them as part of the whole redevelopment project. So the ash one might come a little bit later potentially.
Right. So the ash and the sports backers stadiums aren't necessarily part of the concrete deliverable for this. Am I stating that correctly? You guys want, assistance with these anticipated projects, but concretely, they're not part of the deliverable. Forgive me for
Yes.
just asking something obvious.
Oh, that's a very good clarification. Leonard, were you going to say something?
Go ahead, Maritza.
No, we're not asking you to rebuild the Arthur Athletic Junior Center within the site, nor the sports backers facility. So just imagine those. I guess the language is a little confusing when you think about it that way, actually. We want to be able to redevelop the whole property, and in doing so, relocate those functions elsewhere.
And I think that's to your point, Maritza. I mean, ideally, Sports Backer Stadium does have a role in the community, and so while not on the 60-acre site, certainly a part of the overall solution for that corridor is a replacement for Sports Backer Stadium. Again, not on the 60 acres, but again, just in concert with what VCU has planned for the Athletics Village. And then in terms of the Arthur Ashe Center, just making sure that those functions and the access can be replicated in other places, whether it be a part of, if a facility is developed on the 60 acres or in very close proximity, I would say.
And so some of that's why it says like assist the city, because there's clearly a city role in some of that, moving those pieces and figuring out the like actual agreements that happen. That's why this is definitely a public-private partnership.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions folks may have? One thing, while people might think of another question, I am going to be sending out a list of everyone who attended this meeting. That's usually what happens at in-person pre-bids. They photocopy the sign-in sheet. So we will be doing that.
Also, just reflecting back on one of the questions or comments made, we don't anticipate there being any other minor league organization, minor league baseball team, other than the Richmond Squirrels in that ownership group, being the tenant. All of the steps that we've taken and the conversations over the years have been about the Richmond Squirrels. So I just want to clarify that in terms of that ownership group, and no different than in terms of college baseball, VCU Rams.
Randy, go ahead and unmute.
Maritza, will you share the PowerPoint when you send out the list of attendees? Can you share that also?
Yes, I will share the PowerPoint as an attachment with the attendees. I'll put the PowerPoint on our website too, but so that you guys get it sooner, I'll just send it with an attachment. Other questions? Brian, go ahead.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier that the master plan was kind of open. Does that, so in other words, are you looking for the proposers to potentially, rethink that site, or would that introduce another step in the process understanding that the Richmond 300 plan has already been approved and the zoning was approved around that?
Yes, I'm sorry. I'm happy that you asked that clarifying question. I guess what I mean is, generally speaking, and I think maybe I'll just pull up the master plan while I'm at it. The master plan for Richmond, for this area, shows like proposed new streets coming in and like where those streets exactly would go and things like that. What we mean is like, we don't necessarily have to adhere very specifically to the building massing and like the way that we've broken up the grid or where we've put the parks or where we've put the ballpark. We don't have to adhere to that to the letter of what it says in the master plan, but we can, but that wouldn't require a whole new amendment to the master plan. If like when we get to the offer stage, development teams propose something that's like a slightly different layout, but still meets the goals of the master plan, that's fine.
Oh, got it. Okay, that's helpful. That was my question. Thanks.
Okay. John, go ahead.
Akin to the master plan question just discussed, I hadn't heard any further discussion on any of the other individual programmatic components. In particularly, there was reference to a hotel project and a multifamily project. Is that still a part of this exercise?
Yes, so we kind of see this being redeveloped as a mixed use project that may include all of those components. It's 67 acres, it's rather large. And if we're trying to create kind of a mixed use, mixed income entertainment destination, it may be appropriate to include all those different elements.
I would go one further, Maritza, and say that's exactly a good question, because we are looking for it to be very mixed use. A lot of people come to this area to frequent Scott's Addition. It's a thriving area with a number of the museums that are of note here in the city. So a hotel would be probably very beneficial and well received. Yeah. I think the one thing that we're not looking for is a singular kind of use proposal, whether that's residential, retail. We really are hoping that we will get proposals that are in the spirit of making this a urban mixed use development. And I say urban also because we're not also looking for something of low density. We rezoned this as transit oriented district, and that's what we're hoping that we get. A TOD district in the city of Richmond allows by right up to 12 stories in height, and we would be willing to entertain special use permits to exceed those height limits based on what you're proposing.
Great, thanks.
Maritza, if there's not another question, I know Todd Parnell with the Richmond Flying Squirrels is on the line with us today, and maybe he'd want to share just a few brief thoughts with the group before he ends by saying go nuts.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Parney from the Flying Squirrels. Thanks for having me. It's great to see all the interest. The Flying Squirrels obviously are very focused on this project, as it is very necessary for us to get into a new facility so that we can not only continue doing what we do baseball-wise and developing players to win championships at the major league level, but more importantly, to be an integral part of the community 365 days a year in Richmond, Virginia. That's what we do more than anything else. Y'all mentioned community engagement. We engage with the community 365 days a year as the local minor league baseball team, and we're thrilled to be working with the city of Richmond, Leonard and the whole staff there. And of course, our partnership with VCU Athletics in my opinion, is second to none. I don't know of any minor league team and athletic, a university athletic program that have the relationship that we do. So we're excited about this, obviously. And, you know, the new facility guidelines instituted by Major League Baseball, incredibly important. But we feel like we have been part of the reason that the Scott's Edition has blossomed over the past 12 years. And we're looking forward to being an integral part of this transformational project that everyone on this call is interested in. So thanks for having me. I really appreciate it and look forward to being at the site visit next Wednesday and being a part of anything that is necessary for this to be a successful project. Go nuts.
Thank you, Parney. And if anybody was wondering why it's called the Diamond District, it's not because there's diamonds in the dirt. It's because we have a baseball diamond, and we're hoping that that anchors this new mixed-use entertainment district.
Does anyone else have questions? I don't see any hands raised. We have more time. And I am going to share my last slide again so that everyone can see.
It looks like there's one that popped up.
Excellent. John, go ahead and unmute.
Yeah, and this may be maybe down the line, but I was curious, how by right is this project? And curious about also sort of the approvals. So, you know, there's obviously community approvals, there's city approvals. Just want to double check. There's no other sort of any other layer that we should be mindful other than, you know, being sort of your typical sort of, you know, local jurisdictional approvals process?
So we will need 7 of 9 council member votes to transfer the property, which we went with before, and then we'll need the financing. If the project adheres to TOD1 zoning requirements, it will go through a POD, plan of development review process, which is an administrative approval by the planning director. So that doesn't involve community review. And the project is not located within a city old and historic district, which is another layer of review. It's not within that area, so we don't have to go through those hurdles.
Sounds good. Okay.
May I add one other additional comment to that, please, Maritza?
Yeah.
And just out of an abundance of clarity for everyone on the line, I am not a planner. But what I will say is, you know, on the other side of that question, the work that Maritza and her team and the city has done to develop and approve, and for city council subsequent approval of Richmond 300, the city's comprehensive plan, and embedded in that the Greater Scott's Edition small area plan, there has been an enormous amount of community engagement and city input in that process. And so from a concept, from a vision standpoint, you know, even as outlined in the Diamond District RFI, you know, there's been a lot of purposeful thought put into, again, just what the city's vision is. And so, you know, yes, there are the legislative processes, and there are entitlements that are already there. But then on the other side of it, you know, just from the standpoint of community approval, there's been a lot of legwork, again, just to cast the overarching vision.
Maritza, I have a question. I see that we're recording this virtual meeting. Is it safe to assume that the recording will also be posted on the website?
Yes, and the recording will be posted and the presentation will be posted on the city's website, rva.gov. And I will include a link to where you'll be able to find that. It takes us a little bit of time to be able to get it uploaded linked on the website, so it probably won't be today, but hopefully it'll be up by tomorrow. on that site. And I have my slide up here with my contact information. Please direct all your questions to me. And you also should have gotten an email from me because I wanted people to register for the meeting, so I would have a documentation of who attended that I can share with everybody. Just some key dates. Tomorrow is the deadline to register for the tour. If anyone joined late, that tour we were going to do a bus tour, but because of Omicron, we are going to just stay on site at the Diamond outside, and we'll offer you a self-guided tour you can take in your own vehicle. And your questions are due to me by the 21st at midnight, and we will post the question responses on the 26th, and the RFI submissions are due February 15th by 3 p.m. Any questions from people on the phone who want to unmute?
And Maritza, just to help fill up time, we know in the information that was shared, we talked about how desirable of a city and of a community Richmond is, and continues to be from the standpoint of our business community, continued growth and investment. For those who may not be aware, last month, CoStar Group announced the $460 million headquarters expansion, or a new expansion to their thriving facility already in the city, which will add 750,000 square feet of new Class A LEED certified office space, and will also add almost 2,000 new employees over the next several years. And today we announced another project. Intact Technology is investing in to open up a new office space in our downtown area, downtown and Shockley area, and adding 125 new IT jobs. And this is the type of activity that we have continued to see over the past several years in the city of Richmond. And we firmly believe that the redevelopment and repositioning of the 60+ acre Diamond will one, help us to attract more of those opportunities, but also to help what we've been able to do the past few years to further demonstrate to the development community that Richmond is a solid market to be in.
Leonard, did you say yesterday at the mayor's press, weekly press, that it was 3,000 jobs in the last 2 years?
That we directly have had a hand in terms of the projects that we've been a part of, over 3,000 new jobs and almost $1 billion in new investment. And for those that that have questions about the city's processes and things of that nature, one of those projects was the sale and redevelopment of the city's former public safety building, which is in the downtown footprint. And we went through a very engaging process with our city council to cause a $325 million purchase and sale agreement. Purchase and sale agreement and a development agreement for a $325 million mixed-use project for that 3+ acre site.
Thank you for that overview. Daniel.
Hi. Just maybe a slightly provocative question about the Diamond, the stadium. I see the reasons for a new ballpark and the compliance issues. Is it absolutely out of the question to consider, a thorough adaptive reuse of that structure in order to bring it into compliance with the MLB standards? Has that been considered? Is it considered not cost effective, or is it considered physically impossible, or it's simply just not desirable by the city or by the Flying Squirrels?
Yes, it has been considered, and it has been considered physically impossible and therefore also cost ineffective. There's certain requirements that kind of happen behind the scenes for locker rooms and provision for female staff and all these different things that you just physically cannot do in the space. And if you really were to try and do it, because like I guess anything's possible, right? Like with enough money, it would cost a lot of money. So it's not something that we are exploring for those reasons. Well, we have explored it, but we're not continuing that exploration. Leonard?
Maritza, we also have Ed McLaughlin, who is Vice President for Athletics, also known as the Athletic Director for Virginia Commonwealth University. One of the things that makes this project appealing, and we believe, and you'll also see in the small area plan, is the proposed athletics village on the opposite side of Hermitage. And Ed, if you wouldn't mind just sharing just a couple of quick nuggets for folks who are on the call.
He already did when you were kind of having computer problems, but Ed, if you have anything
that's what happens when you have technical difficulties.
Ed, if you have anything else to add
You
on
show up
that.
late to the party, Leonard. You missed the good parts, you know. No, I appreciate it. I appreciate it, and wanted to certainly echo what Parney and Leonard have both said, and Maritza and Sharon too. I mean, it's a great partnership right now, and we're looking forward to this project very, very much in working with not only whoever the successful developer is, but working with our partners at the Squirrels in the city to make sure this area of land just absolutely takes off. It's transformational for the city.
Okay, there are no other questions. We will give you back 10 minutes of your time, and thank you for the 50 minutes you spent with us today. My contact information is on the screen. We really are excited about this project. Look forward to receiving your proposals and further questions that you may have, and please be in touch as those questions come up.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a great day, everyone, and thank you for your interest.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.